Sold like a broken tool asterisk. The auction block was cold. Metal chains rattled as the alien girl stood barefoot, trembling. Her skin was pale blue, bruised in many places. Her long white hair was dirty, hanging like torn threads. A scar ran across her left cheek, and her glowing eyes no longer held light. She was young, but life had already stolen everything from her. She didn't speak. Not anymore. The crowd below was loud, shouting bids, laughing cruelly. Some aliens threw rotten fruit at the slaves. Others pointed and joked, as if picking animals. From a pen, the girl didn't flinch. She was used to this. She had been bought and sold 4 times already. Every time, the new master was worse than the last. She expected nothing but pain. A loud voice echoed through the space. Lot 77. Rare female specimen Zarelian race. Still alive but badly damaged. Start at 1,000 credits. The auctioneer grinned. Perfect for labor or other uses. The girl closed her eyes. Her hands were tied in front of her. Her knees were weak. She was ready for the next monster to buy her. Then something strange happened. The crowd quieted. Footsteps echoed through the chamber. A tall human man walked forward. His clothes were simple, dusty from travel. He looked older than most, maybe in his 50s. His beard had gray in it. His eyes were tired but calm. Not cruel. Not hungry. Just calm. He stopped in front of her. He didn't touch her. He didn't laugh. He didn't even look at her body the way others did. Instead, he looked into her eyes. She looked away. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Ah, sir, are you here to buy?" The man nodded once. "Yes." "Then make your bid." 1,000, 10,000 credits, the human said quietly. Gasps spread through the crowd. The auctioneer blinked. 10. Are you sure? She z's. Not worth. I'll pay now, the human interrupted. No questions. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed credit chip. The auctioneer quickly scanned it. It was real, fully loaded. No tricks, sold. The auctioneer shouted, more shocked than excited. To the human buyer, the chains were unlocked. The girl fell forward, too weak to stand. The human caught her gently, holding her like she weighed nothing. She expected a punch, a command, a leash. But he just said, "Let's go." She didn't speak. She didn't look at him. Her heart beat fast as he carried her to his small ship at the edge of the market. She memorized the doors, the windows, every corner. Just in case she needed to escape, he placed her on a small cot inside. It was soft, clean. The lights were dim and warm. Not harsh like the slave cages. She expected him to lock the door. But he didn't single quotes instead. He brought her food. Simple warm stew and a bottle of clean water. He set them down beside her and stepped back. "I'm called Reed," he said. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Rest." Then he walked away, leaving the door open. She stared at the food. Was it poisoned? Drugged? She had been tricked before. But the smell made her stomach twist with hunger. Slowly, she took a bite. Nothing happened. Then another. The warmth filled her empty body. She drank the water, her hands shaking. Later that night, while Reed worked outside the small ship, she found a small blade in one of his tool bags. Her fingers closed around it slowly. This was her chance. She stepped into the cold air, hiding the knife in her sleeve. Reed stood with his back to her, fixing the panel on the ship. His neck was bare. One quick move, and she could be free again. She took a step closer, but before she could lift the knife, he turned and smiled. "Hungry again?" he asked gently. He held out another small bowl of stew. She froze. She stared at him. He wasn't scared. He wasn't angry. He saw the knife but didn't move. "You can keep it," he said, nodding at the blade. "I'm not here to hurt you. If you want to kill me, I won't stop you." Her hands shook. No one had ever said that to her. Ever. She dropped the knife, her knees gave out, and she sank to the ground, confused, broken, and overwhelmed. Reed placed the stew in front of her and walked back inside, saying nothing more. She sat in the cold, staring at the food, the stars, and the man who didn't act like a master. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a slave. Asterisk. Knife stayed on the floor where she had dropped it. She hadn't picked it up again. Not because she trusted him, no, trust was a word she had buried long ago, but something about the way he looked at her. Like she was a person, not a thing. It made her hands stop shaking for the first time in weeks. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the small bed inside the human ship, staring at the walls. There were pictures taped to the side panel, faded photos of a smiling girl, a dog with one ear missing, and a mountain covered in blue trees. Earth things, maybe. Home things. Her kind never took photos. Memories were pain. She heard Reed moving around outside, fixing parts, talking softly to himself. Not watching her, not chaining her. It made no sense. She waited for the trap. There was always a trap. By morning, he knocked once before walking in. Not loud, not harsh. "I have tea," he said. "Helps with headaches." She didn't answer. But she didn't look away either. Reed placed a steaming cup on the small table, then sat across from her at a distance, far enough that she could run or fight if she wanted. He sipped his own tea slowly, like there was nothing strange about having breakfast with a Zarelian slave. "I know you don't believe me," he said at last. "That's fair." Still, she said nothing. But her eyes narrowed, watching every twitch of his fingers, every flick of his eyes. She was trained to spot lies, trained to survive. He reached into his pocket. She tensed. But he didn't pull out a weapon. It was a key. He slid it across the table toward her. "You're not locked." "In," Reed said. "This opens the ship's door. You can leave whenever you like." Her heart pounded in her chest. "No one owns you, not anymore." She looked at the key, then at him. "Why?" Her voice was dry, unused. "Why give this to me?" "Because," he said, and his voice was soft. "Someone gave me a second chance once. I didn't think I deserved it either." She held the key. Cold metal. Sharp edges. Was this another game? A test? Later that day, she stepped outside the ship again. This time with no blade in her sleeve. She didn't go far. Just to the edge of the trees. The sky here was soft purple, and the wind smelled like rain and dust. She sat on a rock and stared up at the twin moons. No chains, no walls. She could run. She could vanish. But something kept her feet still. Reed was nearby, checking fuel lines, muttering to himself about leaking valves. He was humming a tune she didn't recognize, human music. She had never heard it before. It wasn't beautiful, but it wasn't cool either. She found herself listening. For no reason. "Your name," he said suddenly, without turning around. "Do you remember it?" She flinched. She had a name once. Before the cages. Before the collars. But it was torn from her mind long ago. Beaten out of her. Replaced with numbers and orders. She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. Reed didn't push. "That's okay. We'll find you a new one." That night, something strange happened. She dreamed not of pain, not of running, but of a river, calm water, sunlight on her face, someone humming that same tune. A dream that didn't hurt. She woke with tears on her cheeks. For the next few days, she watched him work. He asked no questions, never touched her. Always knocked before entering the room. He taught her how to cook basic meals, let her hold tools, showed her how to repair a cracked panel on the ship. One morning, she spilled a container of dried roots. She panicked, expecting the shout, a slap, a punishment. But Reed just laughed lightly. "Don't worry. We've all made bigger messes than that." She stared at him. Was he mocking her? But no, his smile was real. Not cruel, just human. That night, she sat at the table with him, slowly sipping the strange tea he made. She looked at him carefully. "You're not afraid of me," she said. "No," he replied. "I could still kill you." "You could." He nodded. "But I don't think you will." She stared into her cup. "Why not?" She whispered. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Because you already had the knife, and you didn't use it." She looked at him, long and silent. She had been sold, beaten, used, and now handed a key, a knife, and kindness. No one had ever done that. And for the first time, the knife wasn't in her hand. It was in the drawer. Forgotten. Asterisk. The storm came without warning. Wind screamed over the trees like wild beasts, shaking the ground beneath the ship. Purple lightning tore across the sky, and dust swirled so thick it choked the air. Inside the ship, the alien girl curled under a blanket, eyes wide, breath tight. Storms reminded her of the transport cages, cold metal, screaming sounds, and endless fear. She didn't know what woke her. Maybe the thunder. Maybe the memory. Or maybe the nightmare, the one that never left. "Her," she gasped, sitting up fast. Sweat covered her skin. Her heart raced like it was still running for its life. Her hands reached for the wall, for anything solid, anything real. Then she saw him. Reed was standing at the door of her room, holding a small light in one hand. His face was calm, but his eyes were alert. He must have heard her cry out. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said softly. "You were dreaming." She blinked, confused. No shouting, no hitting, just concern. "I'll go," he added. "I just came to check if you were." "No," she said quickly, surprising even herself. He stopped. She looked away. Her voice was small. "Just stay there." Reed nodded and leaned against the doorframe. He didn't step closer. Outside, thunder growled again. She flinched. "I hate storms," she whispered. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask anything, but after a moment he began to speak. "When I was a boy," he said, "my father left during a storm like this. He never came back. I used to think storms meant someone would disappear." She listened, unsure why. "After the war, I lost my daughter in one," he continued. "We were trying to get out of a falling station. Lights were gone. People were screaming. I told her to run ahead and I never saw her again." His voice didn't crack, but she could feel the pain behind every word. Real, heavy. She stared at him. This man, this strange, quiet human, had his own scars. "You lost someone." "Too," he said gently, meeting her gaze. "Didn't you?" Her breath hitched. Memories poured in too fast, too raw. Her sister's eyes as the gate slammed shut. Her father's scream as the slavers dragged him away. Her own voice, begging for mercy, only to be silenced with a blow. She hadn't spoken their names in years. "They took everything," she whispered. Reed didn't reply with pity. He just sat on the floor across from her, cross-legged. As the storm raged outside, "No one should carry all that alone," he said. Quietly. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken pain, but also something new. Something small, like a seed beginning to grow. She lay back down, still shaking, and pulled the blanket tighter. "Will you stay until it ends?" she asked. He nodded once. "I'll be right here." And he was. Hours later, the storm began to fade. Wind slowed. The lightning died in the clouds. The alien girl opened her eyes to soft light coming through the window. Reed was still sitting there, dozing upright, arms crossed. She watched him for a moment. He hadn't lied. He hadn't left. That day, something shifted. She no longer sat alone during meals. She began to ask him questions, small ones. What is a tree farm? Why do humans drink coffee? Why do some laugh at nothing? He answered with simple words, patient and warm. She tried to smile once. It hurt, like using a muscle. Long forgotten. Later that week, Reed showed her how to use the small greenhouse pod attached to the ship. "Plants don't judge," he said, handing her a seed pouch. "They just grow, if you let them." She picked seeds from her home planet, glowing blue vine fruit, something she hadn't seen in years. She pressed them gently into the soil. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked one evening, watering the plants. "Every day," he said. "But not the people, just the quiet." "Is that why you live out here?" He looked at her with tired eyes. "Maybe. I think I was running until I found something worth staying for." She looked down, pretending she didn't understand. But she did. That night when she passed his room, she paused. Something pulled her toward the doorway. She peeked in quietly. Photos of the girl and dog sat on a shelf beside a dusty music player. There was no bed, just a sleeping bag on the floor. Simple, lonely. She stepped inside, picked up one photo. The girl looked just like him, kind eyes, soft smile. "She had your eyes," she whispered. Reed stirred. "Yeah," he said, voice thick. "She did." He didn't ask her to leave, and she didn't want to. Not anymore. Morning came with golden light pouring through the ship's front window. For the first time in years, she woke without fear in her chest. No footsteps to hide from. No shouting to expect. Just the sound of Reed humming softly in the kitchen, burning breakfast again. She watched him from the hallway. His back was turned, and smoke curled up from the pan. "You're doing it wrong," she said. Reed jumped. "What?" "It's eggs. How can anyone mess up eggs?" She raised an eyebrow. "You've burned them 3 times this week." He looked over his shoulder and smiled sheepishly. "Want to show me how it's done?" Her hands twitched. The old voice inside her screamed, "Don't say yes. Don't step forward. Don't let your guard down." But she ignored it. She walked past him, picked up a clean pan, and cracked an egg perfectly into it. "First, low heat," she said calmly. "And you don't stir it like soup," Reed laughed. "Yes, ma'am." The smell of proper food filled the ship for the first time. She turned off the burner and handed him a plate. He took a bite and made an exaggerated wow face. She rolled her eyes, but something strange happened. She smiled. Not a small twitch, not fake. A real, warm, surprising smile. Reed blinked. There it is. What? That smile. Thought it was a myth. She looked down quickly, cheeks warming. Don't get used to it. No promises. That day, they worked together outside the ship. He showed her how to patch holes in the engine lining, how to tighten loose wires without frying her fingers. She asked questions. He answered every one with patience. At one point, a spark jumped and almost hit her hand. She flinched. Reed gently pulled her hand back, checking for burns. "You okay?" She nodded, though her heart was racing. He let go quickly, giving her space. "Sorry, just checking." She looked at her hand. It wasn't hurt, but it had never been touched so gently before. Later, she returned to the garden pod and found the first vine fruit seed sprouting. Tiny, glowing, alive. She touched the leaf like it was glass. That night, they ate together again. This time, no silence hung between them. He told her a story about how he once got lost on an ice planet for 3 days and had to eat snow roaches to survive. She laughed. She actually laughed. Reed froze mid-bite. "You just laughed. That's 2 miracles in one day." She shook her head, still smiling. "Snow roaches? That's disgusting." "They were crunchy. That's not better." They laughed together until tears filled their eyes. It felt wrong and right, like 2 ghosts learning how to be alive again. After dinner, she sat outside the ship, looking at the stars. Reed joined her, sitting with a blanket over his shoulders. The cold night didn't feel sharp anymore. "Can I ask something?" she said quietly. "Sure." "Why didn't you give up on people after what happened to your daughter?" He thought for a long moment. "Because if I gave up on others," he said slowly, I'd be giving up on her too. She nodded, understanding more than she could say. Reed looked at her. You don't flinch anymore when I walk near. I noticed that too, she said softly. Strange, isn't it? No, it means you're healing. She didn't answer, but her heart beat a little steadier. The next day, they painted the ship's old hull. The name was faded, just random letters and numbers. She stared at it for a while. You should name it, Reed said. She blinked. Me? Yeah, you brought it back to life. She thought for a moment, then dipped the brush in blue paint and slowly wrote 4 letters. Ella. Read aloud. What does it mean? In my language, she said softly. It means found after lost. Reed looked at the name, then at her. It suits this place, and you. As evening came, Reed handed her a small music device. It's old, but it still works. You might like it. She put the earpiece in, and for the first time, heard human music. Slow piano, soft voice, something deep and emotional. She closed her eyes and cried, not from pain, not from fear, but because the sound touched a part of her soul that had been quiet for too long. Reed didn't say anything. He just sat beside her, letting her cry in peace. By the time she opened her eyes, the stars had shifted overhead. She wiped her tears, looked at him and said, I want to learn more about music. About life. He smiled. Then let's start tomorrow. She looked at the ship, the stars, the small green sprout in the garden pod. And for the first time in years, she wasn't surviving, she was living. The days passed like a gentle dream. She woke with sunlight on her face. She cooked. She repaired circuits. She planted more glowing vine fruit. She even started humming a human song under her breath, not even realizing it. She didn't feel like a slave anymore, not even a survivor. She was something else, becoming someone new. Then everything changed because of a shadow. It came at dusk. She was outside the ship, checking the garden pod, when she saw it, a small glint in the sky, like a falling star, but silent and smooth. It moved too straight, too fast. Her heart dropped. She ran to Reed. There's something watching us, she said, her voice shaking. Reed looked up at the sky, narrowed his eyes and said nothing. Instead, he went inside and pulled something out from under a hidden panel. She froze. It was a weapon, not a small one but military grade. Old, scratched but deadly. You said you were a mechanic, she whispered. I am, Reed replied, loading the weapon calmly. But I wasn't always. Who would be tracking you? He looked her in the eyes. It's not me they're tracking. She didn't speak, but she understood. It was her. She ran outside again, scanning the trees, the sky. That glint was gone, but the silence felt wrong now, too still, like the forest was holding its breath. That night, Reed locked the ship's outer doors for the first time. He turned off every light. The garden pod powered down. The music player went silent. He handed her a small communicator. If something happens to me, press the red button. It sends a distress signal. The code will call in favors. She stared at him. Favors? From who? Old friends, he said, eyes distant. Some owe me. Others still hate me. Either way, someone will come. She held the device tight in her palm. Why are you doing this? I brought this danger here. He paused, then said something that shook her. Because you're not a mistake to regret. You're a person to protect. No one had ever said something like that to her. Not her own people. Not the slavers. Not even herself. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the hallway outside Reed's room, weapon in her lap. She would not let him face danger alone. Around midnight, the ship's scanners beeped once low and sharp. Motion detected. Reed moved fast, calm like a man who'd done this before. He pulled open a hidden panel in the floor and pushed her inside. Stay there. I won't hide, she said firmly. He looked at her. "You're not hiding," he said. "You're bait. If they get through me, you press the button. Then you run." Her breath caught in her throat. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded photo. His daughter. He slid it to her hand. "Keep this," he said. "She'd like you." Then he shut the panel, and the darkness swallowed her. Moments later, the front hatch burst open. Boots slammed into metal. Voices growled in a language she didn't know, but she understood the tone. Slavers, bounty hunters. They weren't here to talk. Reed didn't speak either. He opened fire, above her. She heard it all: blasts, shouts, metal tearing, bodies hitting the walls. She clutched the photo in one hand, the communicator in the other. She wanted to fight, to help, but something deep inside whispered, "Trust him." She waited. The fight went on longer than she thought it would. Screams echoed through the vents. Twice. Someone stepped right over her hiding space. She held her breath. Then silence. A minute passed. Then another. Finally, the panel above shifted and Reed opened it. Blood on his arm. Bruises on his jaw, but smiling. "They're gone," he said. She climbed out fast. "You're hurt." "I've been worse," he said. "But they weren't amateurs. Someone rich sent them." "Who?" He hesitated. Then he picked up a small device from one of the attackers' belts. A bounty tag. When he activated it, a red hologram appeared in the air. Target: Zarellian female, unbranded, wanted alive, 50,000 credits. She stepped back, stunned. "That's me?" Reed nodded slowly. "Someone out there wants you badly. Not just as a runaway. Maybe you know something. Or maybe they're afraid of you." "I'm not important," she whispered. Reed looked at her. "Serious now. You don't offer that kind of bounty for nothing," he said. "You were never just a slave. You're someone they want silenced." She didn't know what to say. Her whole life, she believed she was nothing. Broken. Forgotten. Now someone was hunting her like a threat. That night, they burned the slavers' bodies and buried the rest under the trees. She stood beside Reed, watching the smoke rise. And for the first time, she felt something rise in her chest. Not fear, not guilt. Anger. Cold. Quiet anger. She was done running. She was going to find out who put that bounty on her head, and make them regret it. The forest had stopped whispering. Everything was still. Not peaceful, but waiting, watching. The girl stood at the edge of the ship's ramp, her pale fingers holding the edge of the burned bounty tag. It flickered once, then went dead. 50,000 credits. That's what her life was worth. She glanced at Reed, who was sitting beside a half-repaired drone, eyes focused, hands steady, even though he still limped from the last fight. "You were a soldier," she said at last. Reed didn't look up. "I was worse." "What does that mean?" "It means I was trained to do things no one should be proud of, and I was good at it." Silence hung between them. "You killed them fast," she whispered. "I didn't want you to see that." He replied, voice low. "But I needed you alive more than I needed to stay hidden." She looked down at the photo he had given her. His daughter. Long gone, but still present in everything he did. "Why did you stop being a soldier?" Reed paused his repairs, then looked up at her. "Because I got tired of being a weapon," he said. "And I didn't want to be the reason someone like you never smiled again." She didn't answer, but her chest ached, the kind of ache that made her eyes sting. She stepped closer. "I'm not going to hide anymore." He gave her a long, proud look. "Good," he said. "Then we start now." That evening, Reed opened a black case from beneath his bed. Inside were weapons custom-built, powerful, and illegal in half the known systems. He handed her a smaller pulse gun. "I've never fired one," she admitted. "I'll teach you." He did. He showed her how to hold it, how to brace her arm, how to breathe before pulling the trigger. She missed the first 5 shots, but the 6th hit the mark. Reed smiled like a proud father. "That's it," he said. You're sharper than I was at your age. She gave him a look. You're not that old, he smirked. Careful, or I'll make you fix the reactor by yourself. The next night, a message came. It wasn't from slavers or bounty hunters, but from someone older, deeper, a scrambled signal. Reed's face went pale when he saw the ID code flash on the screen. Who is it? She asked. A name I hope to forget, he said. The voice that came through was calm, feminine, but cold. Reed, you took something that doesn't belong to you. Return the girl, and you walk away alive. She stood beside him, jaw clenched. They know where we are. He nodded slowly. That's not the part that worries me. What does? She called me by a name I haven't used in 20 years. They left that night. Reed didn't pack much, just supplies, weapons, and the girl's garden pod, now glowing with life. She sat in the co-pilot seat, heart pounding. Not from fear, but readiness. We're not running, she said firmly. We're finding them, Reed nodded. Then you'll need to see the places I hoped you'd never have to. They flew into the outer zone's dark space, lawless, full of secrets. The girl watched stars drift by, systems flicker and vanish behind them. Reed didn't talk much. He was focused now, sharper, colder. They landed on a fractured moon called Vex Hollow. It was where Reed's old team had vanished. Inside a buried outpost, Reed accessed a vault and retrieved an encrypted file. He didn't show her what was inside only. Sighed. This will tell us who funded your bounty. That night, as they returned to the ship, mercenaries were waiting. 6 of them. Armed, trained. Waiting in silence under the silver glow of the moon. The girl raised her weapon. Reed didn't. Blink. The leader stepped forward. Give her to us. You don't need to die here. Reed looked at the girl. You ready? She nodded, trembling but strong. Yes. Then he turned to the mercenaries, and the quiet, tired man vanished. What came next was something she had never seen before. He moved like a shadow, one shot, one fall. Another step, another takedown. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. Every move was precise, controlled, efficient. She backed him up, firing shots that grazed shoulders and armor. One got too close. She spun. Fired, hit him square in the chest. Her first kill. She didn't flinch. Minutes later, it was over. Smoke rose from the clearing. The girl's hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. Reed picked up the last mercenaries come device. They're coming faster now, he said. Good, she whispered. Let them come. Back inside the ship, she cleaned her weapon in silence. Reed sat across from her, watching carefully. You're changing, he said. She looked up. Is that bad? No, he said, then smiled faintly. It's dangerous, but not bad. She looked out the window at the stars. I was supposed to be broken. A tool, she whispered. But now they're hunting me like I'm dangerous. You are, he said. For the first time, she replied. I want them to be afraid. Of me. He raised a brow. Then let's make sure they never forget the mistake they made. She nodded once, the fire in her chest now stronger than ever, because now, she wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. Asterisk. The stars looked different now, not because they had moved, but because she had, once. She saw them as distant lights she would never touch. Now, they were paths, choices, power. The girl stood at the front of the ship, staring at the map Reed had opened on the console. It displayed the coordinates of the source where the bounty had been issued, not just by slavers or mercenaries, but by someone much bigger, a syndicate, a silent hand behind many cages. The same hand that destroyed her home, erased her name, and branded her as nothing, and Reed had tracked them to a fortress hidden in the rings of a red gas giant called DREXOS-4. She didn't speak as she stared at the glowing screen. Her heart was calm, her hands steady. You don't have to do this. Reed said softly behind her. She turned to him. I do, she replied. For the girl who never got a second chance. And for all the others still waiting in chains. He studied her face. Her eyes glowed stronger now. Not just from her Zarelian blood, but from purpose. Then we go, he said. Together. The approach to Drexos 4 was like flying through a giant's breath. The gas clouds shimmered and spun, hiding satellites and defense turrets. Reed's fingers flew over the controls. The girl stayed focused, guiding them using the stolen codes they'd taken from the mercs. Alarms flashed as they passed through the final perimeter. Here we go. Reed muttered. Their ship rocked under enemy fire, but they didn't stop. They flew straight into the mouth of the beast. They landed hard. Reed grabbed his rifle. She strapped the small blade, the one she had once planned to use against him, to her waist. Now it was hers for protection, not revenge. As the doors hissed open, they moved like ghosts. Inside, the fortress was a maze of steel corridors and blinking lights. Voices echoed through radios. Soldiers shouted commands. Then they found the room, a giant dome of glass and metal, glowing red from the swirling planet outside. Inside stood the one who ordered her capture, a tall, robed alien with golden skin and silver eyes. He smiled when he saw her. So the little slave came home, he said. She didn't answer. He gestured lazily. We created you, girl. Without us, you'd still be picking trash off the prison floors. We gave you value. No, she said quietly. You stole it. And now I'm taking it back, he sneered. You're nothing but a tool. You think this human beside you will save you. He's just another killer. She stepped forward, steady. He didn't save me. He gave me the chance to save myself. The alien snapped his fingers. Dozens of guards poured into the room, weapons drawn. She and Reed stood back to back. We don't have to win, she said, eyes shining. We just have to make them remember. Reed said. Then the fight began. It was fast, brutal, and loud. Reed moved like a force of nature, covering her left. She fired calmly, hitting targets with growing precision. Smoke filled the air. Sparks flew. One guard got too close. She spun, dodged, and drove her blade into his side. Her first kill was behind her. This one felt different. This one was justice. At last, only the robed alien remained. He backed away, blood on his robes. You don't understand, he gasped. You're worth more alive. We can use you, sell you. She raised her weapon. You already did. Then she fired. The blast knocked him into the wall. Silence returned. Later, as the fortress burned behind them, they flew through the red storm, scars on their faces, blood on their hands, but free, truly free. They didn't speak for a long time. At last, Reed broke the silence. There's no bounty on you anymore. She nodded. Because I ended it. But the galaxy knows. Your face now. Let them. He looked at her gently. So, what will you call yourself now? She looked out the window. Watching the stars rise through the red mist. She thought of the girl. She once was broken, afraid. Silent. Then of the one she had become. Strong, alive, fierce. My name is Vara, she said. Reed smiled. What does it mean? In Zarelian, she said quietly. It means reborn from fire. It fit. He nodded. Nice to meet you, Vara. She looked at him. You know, I still have your daughter's photo. She would have liked you, Vara smiled. I think. I would have liked her too. They set a course for the unknown, not to hide. Not to run, but to search, for others like her, for slaves who needed a voice, for lights lost in dark places, and wherever they went when people whispered the name. Vara, they didn't think of a slave anymore. They thought of the girl who burned her chains and never looked back. Asterisk.